Hello all and welcome to Crochet Designs. My name is Mary, and in today's tutorial we will be showing you a different version of joining your squares for your temperature blanket this year. Now all of us at the moment have been joining our squares like this. It's a join as you go. That's not going to go any further. It's a join as you go look. Now I'm loving this look. This is the one I'm going with for our blanket. Now, if you want to go with this one, we did this join last Friday, and I will leave a link to this join in a description box down below. I actually show you two versions. One where it's let's get it closer. One where it's closed like that, and one where you've got some gaps in the middle. So I show you an easier version and a more complex version like this one. Don't be scared by the complex version. It's not completely difficult. You can actually do that join, okay? Speaking of which, the next part of this join will be uploaded either tomorrow or on Monday, okay? So just bear with me on that one. But in the meantime, guys, for your join today, you're doing two joins. You're doing this one here, which is a back loop only join, and then you're also doing another one which I use the same squares to do, so I pulled them undone, which is a normal two loop join. That's the first one you'll see, the two loop join. You will need today for your join, you will need your 4mm hook that you're using, or whatever hook you're using to make your squares. You will need that. You will need your sewing needle, you'll need your scissors, you will need your color yarn that you're going to use to join all your squares, right? And for you guys here, you will need your calendar with your 14 squares, but you'll also need the next 14 squares. You won't be doing what we're doing here. Now, the thing with this join is, now I'm going to close this up because you don't need to look at that anymore. You actually are going to have trouble keeping it all together because you're going to join the first 14 squares to the next 14 squares. So 28 days altogether, 14 days and 14 days. Because you join like this, you sew across this way, you sew into that one, sew across this way, sew into your next and your next. If you're not doing that and you're doing one at a time, you're going to have a gazillion ends to weave in. So you really need to have your 14 days squares this way and 14 days squares that way. You need your 28 days squares. Now, then you need to turn to the side and do your 26 weeks sewing across. And that means you won't be able to join this side until the end of the year. So that's the only thing. Well, that's one negative of this join. The other negative is it can be, this is the back loop only one. The first one's not a back loop only, but this one here, I found this one's a little bit like, it can be a little gappy, right? Do you know what I mean? It does give it a nice look. I love this look, but it can be a tad gappy. If you give it a stretch, you might be able to see gaps, but that's neither here nor there, yeah? When the blanket is put together, you won't be able to notice it too much, okay? And once you put a border on, even better. The other join that you're going to see in this particular tutorial is both loops together. So it's a lot more of a solid join. It kind of gives it this look, but without that crossover bit that you see there, more of a flatter look. All right, so the other one that's got that you're joining through both the loops, that's the first join you'll see when you start the tutorial here. That is a more it's a more preferred join, or a more professional join that most professional crocheters use. However, I love my join as you go. You're not seeing join as you go today. That's already been done. Again, I popped the link in the description box down below. Very first link you come to. In the meantime, we are going to be joining this. I'm not going to keep you waiting anymore. We're just going to go ahead and start joining. You will need 28 squares to do this join. Good luck, guys. Alrighty guys, we're going to start off with our very first square. Now, before you do any joining up, you need to put one final row, that's very far away, on your squares, okay? So if you want it to look like ours, like at the end of our blanket, we would have that extra row where you don't. So now what you need to do is add the extra row. All right, so we're going to start off by just finding any corner you like. You know, yours truly doesn't like to work in the same area that there already is a join, if I can help it, and I can in this case. So I'm going to pop it in any corner away from that first end. Now, okay, let's just grab a loop and pull it through that corner. Just grab your little tail, pass it forward a little bit. We're going to crochet over that and also weave that in as well. So chain 1, 2 and 3, grabbing your stitch marker. Pretty much the same as we did for the actual square, okay, except now we've got an extra section in the middle, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's just do our corner like normal. So you need to pop in another double crochet, one double crochet and another, chain 1 and 2 and 3 double crochets in the same space. Now you know this because you've been doing this all along. So that's not different at all, just why I'm rushing through it there, all right? But now your square has a center space on each side. Now those center spaces need to be filled up. So you're going to jump over those 3 double crochets and pop 3 double crochets in that center space, all right? So yarn over your hook, jump into the space and do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. All right, then you're just going to jump into your corner and do your normal corner, and you know how to do that. You're doing a double cluster set, which is 3, 2, 3, 3 and chain 2 and 3. Very basic, you know this part. All right, so guess what you have now? That center space yet again, yeah? But this time, I've got a bit of a tail. Now, if you've weaved in your tail, that's great. I haven't, so what I'm going to do is just pop it in my fingers at the back of my work, yarn over my hook, jump into that center space with, what did we do before? 3 double crochets. So off we go. Crocheting over that tail. You can drop it now once you're over it once, and then just do your set. But you know what? That's not it. You are going to weave that end in as well, okay? At the end, we're going to be weaving it in a couple of times as well. So then we jump into our corner with our normal corner. It's very basic. You've done all this before. 3, 1 and 2, and 3 double crochets. All right, so there's our square, or half a square I should say. Don't forget you have a center space, so we need to put in 3 double crochets. 1, 2 and 3. All right, and then what have you got? Your corner. Off you go doing your corner. I love granny squares. And it's funny, growing up, I did not like them at all. I despised doing them because of all the colour changing. 1 and 2. But you don't always have to change colours, as you see here. You can keep going in one colour. Oops. Finishing off that corner. And then guess what? You have one last centre space. Pop 3 double crochets in that centre space. 2. Oops. I split the yarn there, hello. 2, 3. And then you're done. But once again, we have to close up our square. So let's just, there's your stitch marker. Pop your hook in that stitch. With your stitch marker, you can take out that stitch marker. It makes it easier for you. Grab your little thread, pull it through, and pull it through to the loop on your hook. Pull up a loop, make sure everything is correct before doing this part, and cut your work. She says that she didn't check to see if it was correct. Don't you love it? All right, so now you've got one square done, second square done, third and fourth. If you were to do the sewing together there, and you wanted to do it exactly the way we've done here, you would only need that one thread to join there, cut, weave, join there, cut, weave, join there, cut, weave. And then you're going to need to put another 28 squares and do the same. So you're going to have ends everywhere. So your job is to make sure you have your first 28 squares, 14 this way and 14 to go right next to it so that you can do this particular join. All right, so let's just say that you've got 28 of these there and 28, I'm sorry, let's try that again. 14 of these squares this way and 14 of these squares this way. And you're ready to join your 14 to your 14, okay? So let's grab a sewing needle and a piece of thread. Now your thread needs to be, I don't know, let's just put your 14 in a row and then double your thread. And that's probably too much anyway. For us, we're not going to do that much. I'm just going to do a little bit because we only have a little bit to do. And we're doing 2 joins today, okay? And you can decide which join you want to do, okay? So this join here will just be sewing your pieces together. Now that's our right way. How we can tell our right way to the wrong way, 2 ways you can do that. Hold your square. If it bows a little bit this way, then that's the right way. If it turns in when it's the other way, that's your wrong way. Plus, we keep our ends on the wrong side, okay? Plus, the right way of working out what's your right side and your wrong side is where you're working in the rounds this way. When you're looking at your stitches, when you're facing it to you, if you're facing your work this way and you can see those stitches going towards you, that's the right side of your work. When you turn it over, those stitches that you were able to see before are now turning backwards, meaning this is the wrong side. All right, I hope that makes sense, okay? And I'm going to leave a knot so that you can see how we can hide our knots. Let's move 2 pieces. Put your 2 right sides together. Leave that stitch marker for a minute. And what you're going to do, now we didn't knot our yarn, our little tail here with the thread that we're sewing with because I want to weave that in. I don't like a lot of knots in my work, even though we have some already. Alrighty guys, what we're going to do is we're going to work on the first chain closest to that double crochet that we're going to start in. So we're not going to start in double crochet stitch, we're just going to start in the first chain right before it. And you've got 2 loops on top and 1 on the bottom. Go to the opposite side in that chain right before you double crochet, 2 loops on top, 1 on the bottom. Pop your needle through and don't pull your yarn all the way through because you'll need that tail for weaving in ends later. All right, so then just for this one stitch we're going to go back in there, so go right back into that first chain, into the chain on the opposite side. Just make sure you're holding all your little threads down. And don't pull this all the way through. Go like that. And you should have a little loop still sitting there. If it helps to put your finger in, you can. Then pop your little needle in that loop and give it a tug. And what it'll do is it'll give it a gentle knot. So it stops your work from moving about. Okay? Then you're going to go into your very first single crochet. Let's try double crochet on this side. Your double crochet on the opposite side, 2 loops on top and your post down the bottom and pull that loop through. We are still going over our work like that. So you're going into that very second double crochet and your second on the other side. Remember, just the stitch, okay? So you're doing that. So what you're forming is a little loop that way, yeah? Now, this is where our knot is, so we have to be a little wary of how we're going to do this. If I was to just start with my needle in there, that would be okay, right? But what I was thinking was actually jumping right into the actual knotted area, all right? And then going into your last stitch on the opposite side, like that, all right? So just pull your thread through. I'm just trying to avoid pulling these tails in, but I just did it anyway. Can you believe it? I did it anyway. That knot, you don't want to crochet over, sew over it. You just want to pull it down like that. All right. Later, when we've finished your work, you're going to weave this knot in and out up the top area. All right, now we're going to the very first stitch in the next cluster set, the very first stitch in that next cluster set on the opposite side, and we are going all the way across. There's your second stitch and your second stitch, and let's just pick up speed a little bit, she says as she fumbles through the whole thing. All right, and let's go into the third stitch and your third, and off we go. Now that your ends are over here, it's easier to work. Okay, and I think I need to loosen my thread a little bit here in a minute. What do I mean by that? I mean this tail's a little bit long, so I'm just going to make it a little bit loose. All right, second stitch in that last cluster, and I've split the yarn. Let's do it again. Being wary, this is one time where you shouldn't split yarn. And the reason I say that is because once this is opened up, you can actually see the split. All right, I can't see anything there, which is absolutely fantastic. So we're going back into that very first, we'll try last stitch and last stitch on the other side. Now, from here, we have the 2 chains there and the 2 chains there, yes? All right, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the first chain only. Now let's do a little close up here for you. Sorry about my big fingers there. You're going into the chain, 2 loops on top, don't split it like I just did. 2 loops on top, 1 loop on the bottom. Then you go into the opposite chain and doing exactly the same thing, making sure you're not splitting your work, and pull it through. Now, what you're going to do is grab the next 2 squares, all right? Now, I'm not going to go over the tails because you've seen me do that, so let's turn them around like that. All right, fold them over. This can be a little tricky, all right, because jumping from one set of squares to the other can be very tricky. So let me bring that up for you. All right, we went into our first chain on this side. Now what we're going to do, pop your work down for a minute, go into the chain closest to the double crochets on this side. Now we're going over, remember, so come into that first chain there, where there's 2 loops on top, 1 loop on the bottom, and the chain on that side, 2 loops on top, 1 loop on the bottom. Give it a tug, and what this will do is this will move around a little bit when you're working. Okay, don't stress too much about it. Cinch it over and try and keep your work steady. If you can't, when you get to the end of that second square, before you attach more squares, just give it a gentle tug and that will adjust itself. All right, you're in the chains, yes? Now we want to go into the stitch. So just the very first double crochet, which is 1, 2, and 3. There it is. So if you don't know, just count it back, 1, 2, 3, and you can find it. It's there. It's a little tricky, that first stitch, and we're done. You can actually see if it separates like that. You can just give it a tug and it'll close up like so. After the next 2 stitches, things will start to get easier. Once you're in your second stitch, your second, and off we go. Okay, so you may have third and third. You may have extra knots on yours. Just do what we did before with that knot there. Go round it. What are we on? The first stitch on that side, first stitch on that side. All right. Now this join is, we are joining the 2 stitches together, all right? The next one will be joining our back loops together, all right? Let me just do this part here first. All right, we're not going to do any more. We'll just leave it there, pretend like we went across the row. And I just pulled my needle out. Right, just pretend we did the whole row. Later, in fact, we're going to do this now. We're going to turn our work to the side. Pretend you're at the end of your 26th week. Yes, fold your work over this way, grab your needle, and there's your middle join that we've just done. Yes, now you're going to start on this side. Once again, you're going to start exactly where we started before, so popping your needle in that first chain or second chain, whichever you want to call it. There, and one on the opposite side, pull it through. Now do the knot again. I'm not going to do it because I want to take this undone to show you the next step. But do your knot again where you pop it through this way and pull it through that little loop. Then you go directly into your very first stitch on this side, first stitch on the other, exactly the same way we were doing things before, and just keep going all the way across. Okay, I'm just going to pick up speed a little bit. When you get here, it gets a little fiddly, all right? I'm up to my last 3 double crochets, so go into the stitches like so. A little bit awkward here. So just go in and make sure you're checking that you're not splitting yarn. I'm not even in frame. Hello, Mary. Make sure you're checking that you're not splitting yarn. I think I might have split some yarn there, so you can have a quick look, see. We're on our last stitch there, and I keep coming out of frame, so my apologies. Last stitch. Now, let's move everything out of the way. All right, so we did our last stitch. This is our last double crochet. But remember that chain that we still haven't filled in? We filled in one chain on the side, but not the other. So now we're just going to fill in the other. That chain, and in the opposite chain, pull the loop through like so. Then you're going to jump over everything and go into the chain on this side that hasn't been filled in. So remember, you have your 2 loops on the top, 1 loop on the bottom, and you do the same in the very next chain. All right. Pop your needle in that first one there and the first one on the opposite side. Now I haven't been checking if I've been splitting yarn, so this will be a good test to see if there is any split yarn, and you can see what it looks like when you split it. So you must not split yarn in this kind of work. It's the only time we don't split. Nor yours truly does like to split when weaving in ends, but don't tell anyone else that. Okay, we're nearly there. We're not going to go all the way. I'm just going to go halfway so you can see what it looks like, and then we're going to do the other join. All right, one more, and that'll be beneficial to the way it's supposed to look. All right, so let's pretend like everything's okay, and it kind of is. I'm going to open everything up and show you the join. Well, I didn't split any yarn. If I did split yarn, you would see the split in here somewhere. Now, having a look at this one here and then this one here. I'm going to put them both together so you can have a look-see. Now, the join as you go is a little bit more of a solid, I'll bring it out a bit so you can see, more of a solid look. It's still flat, but it's a solid look, uses a lot of yarn. This particular join with the sewing is more, it's more solid on the other side, if anything. It's got a bit more of a lift on the other side. It's a lot neater. This is the actual version that most, well, practically all crocheters tend to use when they're sewing squares together for clothing, dresses, jumpers, that kind of thing. I used this one to sew my jumper together, which is that one right there that you see on the screen. Gorgeous! So I used this one to sew that one together. I used this join. It took a lot of yarn. So just a heads up with our join that we're doing, guys, the original join, it will eat up your yarn. This one here is a lot easier. There's only one little thread that you're going all the way across, and there you go. So now what I want to do is take this undone and do the other join. Alrighty guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to start again. There's those 2 squares, we'll pop them out the way. This time I'm not going to go over any knots because you know what you're doing with the knots, so that's okay. Once again, you're putting your right sides together. And once again, you're starting the exact same way as we started with the other one. You're putting your first needle through your first stitch through your first 2 loops. So everything's exactly the same in that area. Going back, making your knot again. Let's pretend like I've made a knot. I'm just going to pull it through. Oh, let's just do the knot. Oh, it didn't work anyway. Oh no, there it is. I can do the knot. Do your knot. All right. But for the rest of your stitches, you're going into what we call the back loops only. Now, the back loops are here. These are your 2 loops before we were going through both those loops. This is your front loop, and that at the back of your work is your back loop, right? On this side, we're actually going through the back loop, but it looks like the front loop because it's the back loop on the right side, but it's the front loop on the wrong side, okay? So let's just say on both the sides, we're going through that loop there, which is one loop. And of course, without splitting the yarn, and I'll just crochet so tightly, guys, don't crochet so tight. Going through the back loop in that first stitch and the back loop in your first stitch on your opposite side. 1 loop only. I'm going to get it close again so you can see, and I've gone over that tail as you do. That's not what you're supposed to do. All right, there you go. Now, the second stitch, that loop, the back one there, and the back one on your opposition, your opposite side, and pull that thread through. Again, the back loop on your first piece there, or your first stitch. Oops, I nearly put it in the front loop, so that's the front. Don't put it there. Put it in that, I came undone, hello, in that back loop right there. Okay, again, first stitch, back loop only, and I've split the yarn. See that? That will be noticeable later. Don't split the yarn in this case, yeah? This is why I like my join as you go, because I struggle with these chains. But I do like that first stitch we did just now, where you're sewing them both together and through both loops. I think it gives it more of a solid look. Back loops only again. Well, this one's a lot easier though, I must admit. It's a lot easier. You can find your loops there, find your back loop there. Again with the other piece there and there. Whoops, running out of thread. Back loop on your last double crochet in this section, and I've split yarn. And your last double crochet there. Now we've got the 2 chains. Remember those 2 chains? We're only going to pop it in one of the loops on, actually no, pop it through both the loops on the chain. Sorry guys. Through both the loops, because we need these corners here to be secure. So they go through both the loops on the chains. So just that one stitch, grab your next 2 pieces, yes, fold it over the way you did before, removing all threads. Again, another tricky join. It's just the corners that are tricky, but once you get it, you get it. All right, so you're going into both loops on these chains right next to your double crochet, both loops on the chains for added security. Tighten it up a bit, cinch it right up towards that piece there. Then it's the front loops only from your let's try back loops only from your first stitch and the opposite stitch. And I think that might have split it, to be honest with you. It's probably a good thing you see what the split looks like. Cinch it up. If it's moved out of place, cinch it up. You will need to cinch it up occasionally. The second stitch, back loop, like that. Yes. And the second stitch, back loop on the other side. There actually is a 4th join. Am I confusing you guys? Back loop there and back loop there. It's called a, it's like an invisible join, which I find that you need to be a little bit more of an advanced crocheter to attempt it. Doesn't mean you can't do it though. Always newbies, take a risk with your work. Yeah, I'm not going to go and do all these stitches. I'm going to stop at the end of this one. but back loops only all the way. All right. So this is just because I want to, tutorial's going a long time and I want to show you the other side. So make sure that's closed up nice and tight. Finish off your piece. Pretend like you finished your piece. And we're going to start on the opposite side so that you can have a look-see at what it looks like. All right. What I will do is just show you now, just quickly, of what this stitch looks like. I mean, check that out. Is it not divine? I do love the look of it, but if you did split your yarn, you would be able to tell. I haven't actually split it. I thought I had, but I haven't. You'd be able to tell in here, in the groove, all right? So make sure you haven't moved anything out the place there. Open it up. Yep. Make sure it's tightened up. Fold it the other way. Or you can just open it up, turn it the other way, and then fold it over. Whichever suits you. Oh, look at that. There is a knot right here. Let's pretend like you started the corner there. I'm going to go here in some back loops only because I just want to hurry up and show you the rest of the row. I don't want you sitting in here watching me do all this. Do your knot, get everything organized, and go through your back loops only all the way across your row. I might even actually, I should split some yarn to show you what it does look like. I think I will. It's better you see it, that way you know what you're looking for when you see yours split. We were in that one, weren't we? No, we're not. Let's do the back loop, that first one on that side, back loop on that side. Just catch up to me when you get to the little corner area. When you get to the last stitch of that corner. In fact, you know what I will do? In that piece there, I'll split some yarn so you can see the difference. It's really tight now. Okay, if you're struggling with this, pop your finger in there, like I was doing before. Get the back loops of your last double crochet there, back loops of that double crochet, and pull it through. Now remember the chains before, we put it in one chain, but we still have that one chain left. Go through, that's not it, let's try it that way. Go through both the loops in that chain. Oh, I'm struggling to find those two loops. There it is. And both the loops in the opposite chain right there. Pull it shut. Then you're jumping over all of that middle section, going into that last or first chain, whichever you want to call it. And in the opposition, you're going through both the loops of the chains, remember? And then you're just doing your back loops again. Straight into the back loop of your first double crochet, back loop of your second. All right. And then, I'm sorry, not your second, the opposite, sorry. Now we're into the second. All right, you keep going, and what I'm going to do is just split some yarn so that you can see what happens when yarn gets split. I've split one. We'll do this side perfect. We'll do the other side split. All right, and then I've split the third one. I just want you to see it so you know what to look for. Well, you don't want to look for it. You don't want to split your work. I just want you to see it. All right, let's pretend that we've gone all the way across. I'll open it up and show you. Right, now the look of this is, it's really quite pretty, but have a look at the split area. All right, you can actually see, I don't know if you can tell, but right in here, right in there, it's split. Maybe the lighting here is not that good. You might be able to see, there it is, there's some split there, there's some split there, and there's some split there. Later, once the blanket is done, you probably wouldn't be able to tell, but you may be able to tell. So if you've split your yarn, go back and fix it up. Look, it is a pretty, I admit this is a pretty look. Oh man, it's very loose. This is a very pretty look, okay, and just, I don't know, it's really nice. I can't complain. But I do like the first join, because I prefer all this to be together. I find this one can be a little bit, when you look at it, can look a little bit stretched after a while. But, that's part of it. All crochet stretches anyway. Also, guys, I have to record this a little bit later in the evening, so I do apologise. I forgot to mention what to do with your ends. When you are at the end of this section here, what I want you to do is make sure you do that little knot before. You know how we went in like this. We went through the chain there, like that. We brought the thread up and then we went through a little loop and then pulled up tight. That's how I want you to end off your work and start your work. All right, both ends need to be knotted like that. So that way it gives it a nice tightness there. It doesn't matter too much because you're going to be weaving in those ends as well. We are at the end of the year going to be crocheting into this stitch and then into the other. So this kind of does need to be tight, yeah? So what you need to do here is weave in, once you've made your little knot, weave this end in, just inside a few stitches here. And if you're worried about it showing, come down into the stitch and then weave in and out of the stitches there. You will find you'll have a lot of these brown knots sitting right here, and they're the knots at the end of your row, which is this knot right here. With this one, if you wanted to, you could weave that. Just bear with me, guys. We're having lightning and thunder and everything here, so you might have seen a little flash then. If you didn't, well, you're lucky. You're going to hear the noise now. So just weave down into there and into your stitches there, or can you hear the thunder? What? I'm such a wimp. Weave into your stitches at the end, okay? Just weave your ends in always at the back of your work and never in the front, all right? And that's it, guys. Those are the two joins that you can use for your blanket. Now remember, with these joins, you need to do them pretty much at the end of the year. It's the reason why I'm not doing these joins. Now we can do these joins in the future with some other projects that we make. Maybe when we're doing a blanket or something, we can use one of these joins, which is great. But for this particular tutorial, when I say tutorial, this particular pattern, which is the temperature blanket, it's probably not the wisest join to use, okay? Otherwise you have to wait till the end of the year before you can start joining. All right, also guys, don't forget to join me on this Monday. We'll be doing our part 2 of the join as you go, okay? And now you will have already 4 joins that you can use for your piece. If I had to choose between all the joins I've done, this is the one I would go with right here. If I had to choose out of these two, I would have gone with that very first join. All right, so thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share and do all the wonderful things that you guys will pretty much already do for me. And remember, we actually have lives at 4 p.m. Wednesday afternoons and 10 a.m. Saturday mornings Melbourne, Australia time. And in those lives you get to decide on some of the projects that show up here on the channel, and you also get to decide on some of the color combinations that you see, except for this one. This is decided by our temperature. Your temperature in your country, that's why we call it a temperature blanket. But ordinarily I do take in all the information that you guys give me and all the ideas that you guys give me for the channel. I don't always do them all, but I try to get in as many projects as I can. Thank you so much for watching, and all I want to say right now, guys, is ciao for now.